Am I going? Am I going? Yes, I am. Hello, my YouTubers, and a um, special thank you to my 20 subscribers. You all know who you are, and even though 20 subscribers is not much, but uh, but 20 subscribers, it's people that supported me, supported my material. And if any of y'all sees this episode, please comment, like this episode, because the more you like, the more what's that word I'm looking for? Algorithms, where this video will be shared all over YouTube. And please feel free to share this episode on your social media. Um, comment, comment. I don't care if you want to debate. Just leave in the comment sections, and I will um, respond. Um, but because this episode is going to. Oh yeah, I'm sorry about my surroundings and stuff. But anyway, yeah. But once again, thank you for my 20 subscribers. Let's please share as many times as you want, so we could reach. Our next goal is 50 subscribers, 100. Our main goal is to reach 1,000, because then I could go live, and I could also monetize my YouTube channel. And once you monetize it, that's when live super chats come in. But this episode, I got a teleprompter. I'm gonna try it out on this. It's basically it's just the heart. It's basically this episode is titled um, the harmful effects of spanking, basically. Um, but here is okay. Okay, here's what spanking does to kids. None of it is good, doctors say. Discipline discipline older children by temporarily removing favorite privileges such as sports activities or playing with friends. Parents who hit their kids may believe that a swat just gets their attention or imposes old-fashioned discipline. But spanking, in fact, makes behavior worse than it was before, and can cause long-term harm. Pediatricians said Monday the American Academy of Pediatrics strengthens its advice against corporal punishment in updated guidelines, saying it makes kids more aggressive and raises the risk of mental health issues. Experiencing corporal punishment makes it more, not less likely that children will be defiant and aggressive in the future. The group says in its new guidelines to pediatricians, there is no benefit to spanking, said Dr. Robert Sage of Tufts Medical Center in Boston, who helped write the guidelines. We know that children grow and develop better when positive role modeling and by setting healthy limits. We can do better. Special learning theory embodied by Bundra's iconic Barbara dolls experiments predicts that children learn by imitating role models. Children who sees aggression practiced by their role models will copy the behavior. Indeed, it is ironic aspects of the prevalence of spanking that the practice employed most often to reduce child aggression, but the evidence actually it increases it. From a psychological theory perspective, behaving spanking is bound to elicit feelings of resentment, hostility, fear, and shame in children. Such real feelings may be suppressed due to fears of retaliation or rejection on part of the parent, but are bound to emerge later in the form of nuances of chaotic emotional expression. According to John Bowlby's well-researched attachment theory, children form internal working models of the world and other people through the constant give and take of the daily parent-child interactions, and working model sets the child's expectations about world, self, and others, and used to guide behavior in new situations and into the future. A child who is routinely spanked when he or she is in need of comforting and support may internalize a view of the parent rejecting and himself or herself as unworthy of love, which in time may lead to eroded intimacy with the parent, as well as depression and low self-esteem. Research has indeed documented consistent links between a history of spanking and less close parent-child relations, as well as higher risk for emotional disorders such as depression and anxiety. The current ascends Ichabodic developmental theory argues that severe childhood stress, known as the Adverse Childhood Experience or ACEs, affects children's genetic predisposed brain process and neural functions in ways that leads to long-term health and emotional problems in adulthood. Indeed, a vast literature exists to show how the cognitive function and health profiles of maltreated children differ from that of their non-maltreated peers well into adulthood. To the extent that spankings is stressful for children, this framework will predict that it may facilitate the development of later problems. And you guessed it, research has shown that spanking does in fact increases children's stress levels as well as the risk for a host of future psychological problems. These findings have prompted some researchers to propose that spanking be added to the accepted list of ACEs known to predict adult adjustments and health problems, and that we begin to consider spanking a public health concern. One may propose that B.F. Skinner's behaviorist theory, which predicts that punishment will reduce the behavior it follows, could supply a theoretical grounding for spanking, yet parents busy, distracted, and humane as they are unlikely to fulfill the conditions under which punishment is effective, according to behaviorist theory. Namely, that the adverse consequence be delivered immediately and consistently following every instance of the problem behavior. Using behaviorist theory to justify spanking also betrays a misreading of Skinner's himself, who has noted in his Body, Beyond Freedom and Dignity, that's his book, Beyond Freedom and Dignity, I'm going to check that out too, a person who has been punished is not thereby simply less inclined to behave in a given way. As best, he learns how to avoid punishment, and punished behavior is likely to reappear after the punishable contingencies are withdrawn. Moreover, the crucial question we must ask educating children is not how we suppress their bad behavior, whether it is how we teach them to forego bad behavior. And in favor of behaving well, punishment is notoriously ineffective as a tool for teaching new behaviors, and even when it works, it doesn't work as well as reinforcement. What children are more likely to learn from the experience of being spanked is that physical might make right, that violence is an accepted means of imposing one's will on others. This data indeed shows that children who are spanked do not internalize a notion that their behavior was wrong, and they do, however, become more likely to endorse aggression and physical means as acceptable forms of resolving conflicts. And still, even in the absence of empirical and theories, justifications, a majority of Americans continue to approve of spanking their children and practice it. Infants as young as 10 months old are being hit routinely for the purpose of causing them pain by their normative and well-meaning parents. Given this, one is justified in wondering if spanking doesn't work, then how come it's so popular? Some of the popularity, some of it probably has to do with the American cultural ethicals, with spanking as guns, football, the military, and comic book superheroes. America, born in war, has an ongoing romance with violence. The treacherous Christian dogma view, viewing children as wild, sinful creatures whose will must be broken into obedience, though in instilling fear is likely an other culprit. However, several psychological reasons can also be offered for the practice continued popularity. First, in the parent-child equation, the parents have the power. The powerful in a given situation seldom see their behavior in that situation as the problem. It's not easy for those whose solution is to inflict pain to see pain as a problem. The axe forgets goes the proverb only the tree remembers. Second, spanking often looks like it's working. Indeed, according to research, parents who rely on spanking do it mostly because their behavior it works, not due to impulse of momentarily frustration. In part, spanking appears to work because it often does in the short term, halting the behavior it follows. Also, three problems with that. Short-term solutions become long-term problems. Heroin, for example, works really well in the short term, as does junk food. Short-term solutions are not what we should aim for in parenting children, particularly if they beget long-term problems. Much of the seeming effectiveness of spanking is due to regression in the means, a known statistical phenomenon whereby extreme behavior tends to turn towards baseline. In short, children are often spanked for extreme out-of-line behaviors, from which they would regress back to normal even without the spankings. Parents think spankings work because one consequence of spanking is to train the spanked to elude spanking. It may seem like thus your child has curbed his or her naughty behavior after the spanking, but more likely he or she has learned from you how to hide or lie about it better. Spanking lasts also because it is a quick and um, and readily available tool for most parents. Spanking is the equivalent of taking a pill to quickly numb your knee pain, rather than engage the long, tedious process of figuring out what pain is trying to tell you about the way you're mistreating your knees. Finally, we all tend to keep to our tribal traditions, and we are resistant to change for good reasons. Tribal alliances protect us, and change begets instability. Thus, it is well for parents who were not spanked as children to begin to spank their children. Spanking, like other behaviors and customs, is readily transmitted from one generation to the next. Absent a strong countercurrent, research has shown that particularly when we are under duress, we tend to fall back to our primary responses, those that are well learned, those we grow up with. Parenting is stressful, so parents will often fall back on primarily responses. Those learned early from their role models for parenting, their own parents, and so spanking persists even though it can neither be defended on the basis of available empirical data nor on the basis of sound psychological theorizing. Could an additional line of arguments help strengthen the case against it? Perhaps helping to finally turn the culture tide toward more effective, fair, and humane ways of parenting. While funny, you should ask, because beyond science, the question of spanking children inherently also engages a moral debate. From a moral perspective, even if we find evidence that a certain practice has material, personal, or social benefits, we may still opt to abandon the practice because it violates what we understand to be basic human rights, and vice versa. A slave labor force may economically be efficient, and a slave owner may treat some slaves with kindness and may protect his slaves from some forms of harm from the hardships entailed in living free, yet these facts do not undermine the moral case against slavery, and it is the moral case upon which our current anti-slavery consciousness laws, habits, and norms are based. Here again, a coherent moral case for spanking is awfully difficult to make. Proponents of spanking usually argue from tradition. This is how I was brought up, which is shaky ground from which to mount a sigilless moral argument. Another defense of the practice fields the famous spell the rod spoil the child argument, which is often framed as biblical, yet the Bible's discussion of physically punishing children is a way of caring for them is brief and open to multiple interpretations. Briefer and more ambitious, in fact, the Bible's lengthy discussion on how to care for our home slaves enough said. On the other hand, the moral case against spanking is robust and intuitive. Even a casual look into the idea of spanking as principal behavior reveals tenable contradictions. For one, the United States is against the law to hit multiple categories of people, including prisoners, criminals, the aides, spouses, bureaucrats, and even Wall Street investment bankers are protected. The right from protection from physical assault, in other words, is extended to the whole range of humanity, all the way to the murky edges, yet somehow not to children who happen to be the most innocent and vulnerable, and whom we are charged with loving and protecting. Further difficulties emerge when we look at the actual practice of spanking. For example, spanking rarely continues into the child's adolescence. The main reason for that is not the method had somehow lost its inherent mojo. Pain is as punishing as consequence to the 16-year-old as it is to the 6-year-old, and a 16-year-old is still a child requiring parental supervision. Whether most parents stop hitting their adolescent child because he is big and strong enough to hit back or run away, or it's mature enough to be reasoned with. In essence, then the underlying reason parents spank their kids is because they can cause young kids are physically weak and lacking in emotional and cognitive maturity. Yet somehow we manage to refrain from spanking other physically weak and emotionally, cognitively immature persons. Were that allowed, you'll be regularly slapping your drunken uncle or your daughter and aunt dealing with dementia. In sum, the informed debate over spanking has been resolved. The practice is a relic of the past and best left there. Granted, old ways die hard, yet the facts remain that when parents finally give up spanking, they will not be giving up a sound educational practice, but a violent habit that is ineffective, risky, and immoral. Okay, that is okay, and that long and lengthy little it's a little the best link I found on spanking. I copy and pasted, put it on my teleprompter, and I know some other words I might have mangled, but in general, you know what I said, what I mean by it. But the part it discusses somehow parents, they tend to stop spanking when their kids gets a little bit bigger because they're tougher and they can hit back. But the smaller kids, well, they're physically weak and immature cognitively. And cognitive. I can say cognitive, but cognitively, no, it's kind of, no. But anyway, why is that? So it shows when you hit smaller kids, their cognitive ability is, it puts stress on it. And, and that's the main reasons for today's ills in the world, children growing up with that. And and other words, I know it discusses like a and this video basically I just want to get people to realize how ineffective spanking is and how it doesn't work, and if we could, once we as a society overcome spanking, quit spanking, the spanking practice, we will not be giving up a educational tool. We'll be giving up a violent one. It's barbaric. If we really look at it, it is barbaric, and us as a society, we need to give it up. There's other methods like more humane methods like peaceful parenting. That's what I advocate for. And plus, like if there's laws against hidden criminals, the older people, and also other cognitive people, such as people who's a little bit slow. I mean, how come like mentally slow people who's adults? Then how come we don't give up the same for children? We must really take a look at that. The small ones who's still growing, the brain's still developing. So if we give up spanking and practice peaceful parenting, a more humane method, then I guarantee it that our children will grow up more cognitive sound and less mental health issues, and you will see a result of good food be produced by peaceful parenting. Thank you so much.